steel sang when he pulled it from the flames. Not the ring of hammer on iron, something else. Something with a throat, with teeth, with hunger. And Thrain Coulson, the greatest weaponsmith north of the Crossfield, didn't flinch. He'd heard that voice before. Every smith who worked the Iron Blood Forge heard it eventually. Most didn't survive long enough to hear it twice. Hear me now, you who sit warm by your fires, with mead in hand and no blood on your fingers.
Fields of ice and fire.
I am the Skald, who remembers what others choose to forget.
Not yet.
Tonight, I sing of a forge hidden inside a mountain, a place where the anvil pulsed like a second heart, where the walls wept rust the color of old wounds, and where every finished blade cost something that couldn't be measured in silver. The Iron Blood Forge sat deep in the belly of the Crossfield Range, accessed through a crack in the granite so narrow a broad-shouldered man had to turn sideways and hold his breath. Inside, the cave opened into a chamber the size of a Jarl's feasting hall. No torches burned on those walls. They didn't need to. The forge pit at the center glowed red, always. Day and night, summer and the frozen months of the long dark. That glow never died. And the air? The air tasted of copper and ash, of things burned that should never have been burned. Thrain had worked this forge for 19 winters. His arms carried the proof, not scars from sparks or splashing metal, but something stranger. Thin black lines that crept up his forearms like roots reaching for sun. The forge's signature, written directly in flesh. His wife Sigrid had begged him to stop, long before the sickness claimed her. She'd watched those marks spreading and known what they meant.
The mountain gives and the mountain takes, Sigrid. That's the old way. That's the only way.
That's what he told her 9 winters ago. She was ash now, scattered on the fjord where the gulls cried at dawn. And Thrain kept working, kept feeding the forge, kept pretending the cost was somebody else's burden to carry.
The cost is mine.
His daughter
now.
Revna had her mother's
The iron
eyes,
blood demands its
green
due.
as shallow water over stone and twice as sharp. 17 winters old, strong-shouldered from hauling timber and stubborn enough to argue with a glacier until it moved. She'd been asking questions lately, about the forge, about the sound she heard from inside the mountain at night, about why her father sometimes came home with hands that shook and eyes that wouldn't meet hers.
Father, why does the mountain hum like that? It's louder this week. I can feel it through the floor when I'm trying to sleep.
Thrain told her what he always told her. The mountain held iron. Iron had its own voice, nothing to worry about.
The mountain waits.
But the lie sat heavier in his throat each time he spoke it, like swallowing a stone that grew sharper with every season. The morning Jarl Eric's longship appeared on the fjord, Thrain was standing at the water's edge, hands wrapped around a cup of birch tea gone cold. 3 days without sleep. The forge had been restless, whispering things he tried not to hear. Names of men long dead. And one name, one living, breathing name that turned his blood to something colder than the fjord in deep winter. The longship cut through gray water like a blade through linen. 30 oars rising and falling in rhythm. A dragon prow with garnet eyes that caught the weak morning sun. Jarl Eirik Bloodaxe stepped onto the black stone shore like a man who'd already decided he owned every rock his boots touched. Mid-50s, face like a cliff struck by lightning, scarred, cracked, unbreakable. His left hand was missing 2 fingers. The right gripped an axe handle like it had grown there at birth.
That's 4 days to find your mountain. Say you forge in the forge of kindred.
Thrain set the cold tea on a rock, looked at the Jarl's remaining fingers, looked at the 60 grim warriors fanning out across the shore behind him, armed to the teeth, silent as stones.
Not all of it's true. Enough of it is. You will take this. There is no other path.
Eric didn't smile. Men carved from that kind of granite had forgotten how. He reached inside his cloak and pulled out a leather pouch, heavy, clinking with hack silver. Tossed it at Thrain's feet, the way you'd toss scraps to a dog.
I raid in 60 days. The blade will be ready.
60 days. Thrain's jaw tightened. A blade worthy of the name Claw, Death's Claw, would demand everything the forge could give. And everything the forge gave came at a price that no amount of silver could cover.
Mountain hungers, but the forge awaits.
That night, Thrain descended into the mountain alone. The crack in the granite swallowed him like a throat. Inside, the forge pit blazed its eternal red, and the black stone anvil pulsed, slow, rhythmic, patient as a predator that's learned to wait. He pressed his palms flat against its surface. The stone was warm, alive, and the whisper came, rising through his bones like water through cracked ice. The forge didn't ask for silver. Didn't ask for iron, or coal, or a smith's sweat. The Iron Blood Forge spoke one word, and the word was a name. Ravna. The mountain hummed, the anvil pulsed faster, and somewhere above, in the longhouse where her dead mother's weaving still hung on the wall like a ghost that refused to leave, Thrain's daughter turned in her sleep, dreaming of fire she couldn't explain. 3 days after Jarl Eirik's silver hit the shore stones, Thrain hadn't slept. The forge demanded what it demanded, and he'd spent those 72 hours searching for a way to feed it something else. Anything else. He'd tried before. 7 times across 19 winters, he'd tried to cheat the old pact. Fed it goat's blood, dog's blood, his own blood once, and that left the black lines crawling past his elbows, up toward his shoulders, hungry for his heart. The forge had swallowed each offering like a man tasting broth when he'd been promised a feast, accepted it, then demanded what it truly wanted. A life. A human life. That was the pact the dwarven smiths of Nidavellir had carved into the stone 10,000 winters before Thrain drew his first breath. Runes so ancient, they'd worn smooth as river rock. But Thrain could still read them. Iron born of mountain, mountain fed by flesh. Flesh given freely or taken by force. The forge didn't care which. 12 blades Thrain had forged across those 19 winters. 12 blades that sang when drawn, that remembered the men they'd cut, that earned their place in Saga. And beneath the anvil, if you scraped through the black ash with your bare fingers, 12 sets of bones told a story no skald would sing.
I want to see it, Father. The forge. You've kept me out long enough.
She'd cornered him at the longhouse that morning, arms crossed, jaw set in a way that reminded him so much of Sigrid, it cut like heated iron. Thrain had run out of excuses, and some part of him, some tired, guilty, collapsing part, thought maybe if she saw the forge, she'd understand the weight he'd been carrying alone. He shouldn't have brought her inside. He knew that. He knew it the way you know fire burns in your bones before your mind catches up. But the forge was already whispering her name every night, and keeping her away hadn't made the whispers stop. Revna squeezed through the granite crack and stepped into the chamber. Stopped dead. The forge pit's red glow painted her face in shades of blood and copper. Her eyes went wide, her lips parted. The anvil pulsed, and she felt it, through the soles of her boots, through her ribs, through her teeth.
It's breathing! Father, the whole mountain is being our eating!
Iron has its own voice. I told you.
But she wasn't listening anymore.
Revna?
She moved deeper into the chamber, drawn by something Thrain recognized with a sick twist behind his sternum. The forge was calling her. The same pull it had used on him 19 winters ago. That warm ache in the chest, like returning home to a place you'd never been. She knelt beside the anvil. Her fingers brushed the black stone. And that's when she saw them. Beneath the ash, beneath the iron filings and charcoal dust, white edges, curved shapes, the unmistakable architecture of human bone.
Let them take her and not me.
Father, what is under the anvil?
Thrain didn't answer. His silence was heavier than any word the Skald could shape. And in that silence, 19 winters of careful lies collapsed like a longhouse in a storm. She dug. He let her. She pulled out a jawbone first, small, human, stained black from years pressed against a scorching stone. Then a rib. Then a handful of finger bones that scattered across the cave floor like terrible dice cast by the Norns themselves. Her hands shook. Her breathing went ragged, shallow. The breathing of someone whose world just split in half.
I know.
How many? 8 too many, Father!
12. All thralls. Prisoners. People no one came searching for.
He said it like that made it bearable. Like a life's worth could be measured by who'd noticed the body missing. Revna stared at him across the glowing forge pit, and the love in her eyes cracked right down the center, split by something that would never fully mend. That same evening, Jarl Eirik sent his price. A cart rolled up the mountain path, flanked by 2 of the Jarl's warriors. Thick-necked men with flat eyes and axes worn smooth from use. Inside the cart, bound at the wrists, gagged with hemp rope, staring at the sky with the terrible calm of a man who'd already accepted his ending, sat Ulf, a Saxon farmer, captured in a coastal raid, 40 winters old, broad, work-roughened hands, quiet eyes that had seen enough of the world to stop expecting kindness from it. The warriors dumped him at Thrain's feet like a sack of grain. One of them spat into the dirt.
Now face the end. The Jarl says this one's your raw material. Forge his blades.
Thrain looked down at Ulf. Ulf looked up at Thrain. Something passed between them. Some bone-deep recognition that both men were caught in machinery older and crueler than either of them could fight. Ulf didn't beg, didn't weep. He just waited, with a dignity that cut Thrain deeper than any edge he'd ever ground. The forge screamed that night. Not a whisper, a full-throated scream that shook dust from the chamber ceiling and cracked a timber in Thrain's longhouse 50 paces away. The anvil's pulse tripled, became a hammering heartbeat Thrain felt inside his own skull. Loithoclo demanded its due. The blade was almost finished, almost perfect. It needed only one thing more. Thrain stood over Ulf in the forge light, hammer raised, the unfinished blade glowing white on the anvil, shrieking with heat stress and hunger. One strike, one life. One more set of bones beneath the stone. He'd done it 12 times before. His hands knew the motion better than prayer. But the granite crack wasn't empty. A shadow filled it. Small, green-eyed, shaking with fury and grief.
Put the hammer down, Father. Put it down. Or I swear by every god watching, I'll destroy that blade with my own hands.
The forge screamed. Revna screamed back. And Thrain Coulson stood between them, hammer raised, nowhere to hide. The full weight of 12 unmarked graves pressing down on his shoulders like the mountain itself. The Skald pauses here, not for breath, for the weight of what comes next. Some sagas end in glory. Some end in gold and plunder. This one ends in a choice made beside a fire that burned before the gods themselves were named. Thrain lowered the hammer. Not slowly, it dropped from his grip and clanged against the stone floor with a sound that echoed through the mountain like a funeral bell. His arms hung at his sides. The black lines on his forearms pulsed with the forge's heartbeat. And for the first time in 19 winters, he wanted them gone. Wanted to peel them off his skin like bark from a birch tree.
Step away from the entrance, Revna. Take the thrall with you. Go!
You were told to leave, witch. This is my domain.
She stepped into the chamber. The forge glow caught her face, half copper, half shadow. And for one terrible breath, Thrain saw Sigrid standing there instead. Same stubborn jaw, same absolute refusal to abandon him to his own worst choices, even when those choices deserved abandoning. The temperature dropped, the air thickened, and from the far wall of the chamber, where the deepest shadows pooled like spilled pitch, something emerged. Not stepped forward. Shape almost human, but not quite. A shape the tensions of the deepest shadows pooled like spilled pitch. Not stepped almost human, but not quite. Too thin, too angular, with eye sockets that burned the same red as the forge pit. Iron dust clung to what remained of his skin, like frost that would never melt. His hands were black to the wrists, not soot, but the same marks that crawled up Thrain's arms, carried to their final, terrible conclusion. Grima, the Hollow One, the smith before the smith, the man who'd given the forge not just his blood, not just his years, but his entire self. Hollowed out, emptied of everything except the pact and the dead patience of cold iron. Grima's hollow face twisted into something that might have been a smile, if the muscles still remembered how to form one. He raised a blackened hand, and the forge responded. The pit roared. Flames leapt past the rim. The unfinished blade on the anvil shrieked, metal stressed beyond its limits, starving for the quenching it had been promised. Thrain looked at his daughter, Revna, green-eyed, fierce, trembling, every bit as stubborn as the woman who'd brought her into this world. He looked at Ulf, still bound on the stone floor, still watching with those quiet farmer's eyes that asked for nothing and expected less. And he looked at his own hands, black-lined, forge-marked, the hands of a man who'd fed 12 lives to a hungry mountain, and called it craftsmanship. Thrain Coulson, the greatest weaponsmith north of the Crossfjell, picked up the blade. Not the hammer, the blade. The unfinished Þóðaklo, still white-hot from the forge, radiating heat that warped the air above it. He wrapped his bare hands around the steel and squeezed. The smell hit first, searing flesh, the hiss of blood meeting superheated metal. His jaw locked, his knees buckled, but he held on.
Father! No, stop!
Thrain didn't stop. He held that blade and gave it what it needed. Not a stranger's life, not a thrall's blood, but his own. 19 winters of stolen vitality poured back through his burned palms into the hungry steel. The black lines on his arms didn't just pulse, they moved, retreating, draining down through his hands and into the metal, like dark rivers finding the sea. Grima screamed. The sound wasn't human. It was iron tearing, stone splitting, 10,000 winters of pact and blood promise ripping apart at the seams. The forge pit cracked. A fissure split the black stone anvil end to end. The eternal red glow flickered. For the first time in memory beyond any saga, it flickered. And Thrain fed the forge the last thing it would ever consume. Not flesh, not bone. A smith's refusal. A father's choice. The one sacrifice the ancient pact never accounted for. Because no previous smith had loved anything more than the craft. The light went out. Not dimmed, not faded. Out. Total and complete. The mountain exhaled, a long, shuddering breath that shook loose centuries of dust from the chamber walls, and fell silent. The hum stopped. The pulse beneath the anvil stopped. Darkness. Absolute. 3 heartbeats of nothing. Then a small flame. Revna, hands shaking so hard the seal oil lamp nearly slipped from her fingers. Its light fell on Thrain, and the man it found was not the man who'd entered this chamber. His hair had gone white, every strand. His arms were bare of the black marks, erased as though they'd never crawled beneath his skin. But the cost was written in every new line carved across his face, every tremor in his emptied hands. He looked 20 winters older, aged in the span of a single breath. The blade lay on the cracked anvil, finished, perfect in its shape, and utterly, completely ordinary. No magic, no memory, no voice, just a sword, well-shaped, honest iron, the kind any competent smith could forge on any Tuesday. It wouldn't sing when drawn. It wouldn't remember anyone it cut. It was clean steel. Nothing more, nothing less.
We're leaving.
Revna sliced Ulf's ropes with her belt knife. The farmer stood, rubbed raw wrists, and looked at Thrain with an expression that carried no gratitude, just the raw recognition of one survivor meeting another. Both men had been inside the machinery. Both had come out breathing. 3 figures climbed out of the mountain that morning. Behind them, the crack in the granite sealed itself. Slow, grinding, final, as if the Crossfjell had decided to swallow its own secrets and keep them forever. The forge was done. The pact was shattered. And Thrain Coulson would never forge another blade as long as he drew breath. The skald finishes the song. The mead hall sits quiet. Someone in the back row wipes their eyes and pretends it's just hearth smoke. That's the mark of a saga done right. When the listeners forget they're hearing words and remember they're feeling something that happened to someone real. Thrain lived another 8 winters. Quiet ones. He mended fishing nets and carved wooden toys for Revna's children with hands that shook too much for any fine work. But they were clean hands. And clean hands, that was enough for him. The blade? Jarl Eirik took it, raided Wessex with ordinary steel, and fell in the shield wall like any other man. No magic saved him. No legend followed the sword. Just a sharp edge and a warrior's nerve. The saga doesn't mourn the Jarl. The saga mourns the 12 beneath the anvil. The names the skald doesn't know. The faces the forge burned away. The lives that fed a mountain so men could pretend their weapons were something more than iron. Remember them. The forge is cold now, but the names still burn.